pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's remain standing. Our kind and Heavenly Father, I just want to come this afternoon and thank you. Thank you for watching over my family. Thank you for watching over my mother and all of my relatives, wife, son, daughter, grandchildren. Lord, I ask that you also watch over each and every family in this community we live in, Chester. Then, Lord, I want to thank you for this packed house of concerned citizens. I ask that you continue to bless their hearts and minds to want to come to these county council meetings and understand what's going on here in their community. I thank you for allowing them to be here, and I ask that you watch over their families while they're away from them. Then, Lord, I ask that you send a special prayer for our fellow council member, John Agee, who's not here tonight, dealing with some health issues. We ask that you touch his body, heal him, and bring him back whole to his community and his family. These and all other things, I ask in your son, Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right. So our next item of business is the approval of minutes. 3A is the May 4th, 2026 council meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion, we approve May 4th, 2026 council meeting minutes.
Second.
All right, I have a motion to approve and a second. Is there any discussion? Call for the question. Those in favor, raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
All in favor. Next is 3B, which is May 11th, 2026 town hall workshop minutes.
I make a motion to approve the May 11th Town Hall Workshop minutes as presented.
I'll second.
All right, is there any discussion? Call for the question. Those in favor, raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
All in favor. All right, that brings us to citizens' comments, and we've got a packed house tonight. We have 13 people signed up to speak tonight. Generally, kind of what we do is if we have one topic and we have more than 5 speakers, I'll call the first 5 up, and then if anyone has anything new and different to add to the conversation, we invite you forward. If it's the same thing that we've already heard, for the sake of time, we can move on to the next subject. So, and I will remind you that you have 3 minutes to speak to us. I want you to direct your comments to council, and we appreciate you being here tonight. So first up is Ann Thomas. Is it Thomas or Thompson? Yep, Miss Ann. And if you would, when you come forward, if you'll state your name and your address for us. Come right here to the center, right here to the middle, to the microphone for us. So if you would state your name. I don't know if I got it quite right. If you would state your name for us and state your address for us.
My name is Ann Thompson. And I have to apologize. I just had to send my hearing aids off to the company that I bought them from. They're not even a year old. Hopefully I'll have them by the end of the week. I'm sorry.
Yes, ma'am. What's on your mind?
You want to know what I'm here for?
Yes, ma'am.
Fellow county council men and women, Chester County citizens. I'm here tonight to talk to you about a real problem, and that is senior handicap parking, especially at the Rodman Park, where the new fields are. I don't have any grandchildren that I go to watch play, but I do go and watch the little boy across the street from me play. And I love watching those little kids play. They put their little hearts and souls. And when those little catchers come out looking like little robots and fall on their knees, they make me laugh. But there's no parking. And when you finally get a parking, you have to walk a long, long way. and you have to carry your chair. I can't do that well at all. Most of our seniors that are handicapped can't do that well at all either. I hope that you all will find it in your hearts and souls to see that, yes, this is truly a problem, and we need to try to do something to fix it. A temporary fix would be if you let us park behind the fields. We could sit in our vehicles and we could see the little players play. We did that one night and they ran us off. And we had to go park way, way away and then walk all the way down to see the children play. And that was hard. So it's a real problem, not just there, but if you go to Louisville High School and you go watch the football games or the soccer games, it's the same thing. The problem is there's not good handicap parking there. There is some, but not enough. So find it in your hearts and souls to fix this problem. Thank you for your time.
Thank
I have somebody else who wants to talk about it. Is that okay?
So I'm going to follow the list, the sign-up
Okay,
list.
all
Yes,
right.
ma'am. Thank you.
He's
Thank
on
you.
the list, but not right behind me.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Thompson.
Thank you all.
All right. Next up is Mitchell Campbell.
My name is Mitchell Campbell. Reside on 1333 Darby Road, Chester, South Carolina, 29706. I'm coming to speak on the behalf of the matters for the rezoning of 1143 Coleman Drive in Chester, South Carolina for the funeral home. I am currently in the process with the Department of Environmental Services, DES, of obtaining the remaining information needed regarding an infectious waste tank that will need to be installed for the funeral home. Once everything is finalized, DES will provide me with the actions that need to take place and later issue the permit for the infectious waste tank to be installed. I have completed everything that has been asked of me throughout this process. Additionally, there are members of the community present at tonight's County Council meeting who support the funeral home project. Emails, letters, and support also has been sent to the Planning and Development Director, Mr. Jeremy Ward. The emails and letters came from members of the community who believe they should have a voice in the decision and are in favor of the rezoning of the approval for this building. This funeral home will have a positive impact on Chester community, and we, as members of the community, stand together in support of the rezoning of 1143 Coleman Drive, Chester, South Carolina, for the funeral home. Thank you, County Council Board.
Thank you. So I do at this time want to mention that Councilman William Killian, he is joining us virtually, so he is a part of the meeting as well. So next up is Jane Bagley.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and council members. I'm also here representing, the Coleman Drive Funeral Home.
And if I could get you to state your
Oh,
name and
sorry.
address.
My name is Jane Bagley, and I live at 1312 Williamsville Church Road. This road has 12 residences currently, 5 of those consisting of large and small farms. Also, 2 generational families border the proposed rezoning site, one having lived there a century, which is represented tonight, the Coleman and Price family, and the other family has been there for 75 years. I am just concerned related to the land preservation and fragmentation. Agriculture zoning is intended to preserve large tracts of land for food production. This proposed funeral home borders on 2 sides by a cattle farm, with only a narrow road separating them. Introducing a commercial structure could lead to an urban island in a sea of agriculture and could destroy the viability of this area. Funeral homes generate traffic. Currently, the road leading into the proposed site is a one-lane road, loose gravel road, excuse me. If a funeral home was in progress, it could cause congestion or possible delay in emergency response to the families living beyond it. Another concern is environmental, which Mr. Mitchell mentioned as far as the tank. I realize that a holding tank be available on site for storage of formaldehyde, body fluids, and other waste. Transportation services would be required to transfer this tank to and from the funeral home for proper disposal. And last, conflicts with operation of a funeral home located beside and surrounding nearby farms could create some issues. Mowing, fertilizing pastures, baling hay, spreading manure, and conditioning and loading cattle could affect the sensitivity at a funeral and at a time of loss. I think this could be problematic. And for these reasons, I just wanted to address council. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, so next on the list appears to be Mr. Campbell. I think you might have signed up twice. Okay. Is there another Campbell? All right, yeah, all right. Gotcha. You would state your name and address for us.
Mitchell Campbell, 1333 Darby Road, Chester, South Carolina. I greet you this afternoon. You may think I'm a little biased, but I am an open-minded person, and I'm addressing the funeral home. And I just listened at the reasoning right before here, where she made, I thought, reasons that should be considered. But this is my feeling. I believe that small businesses are vital, they're needed, and there's opportunity. It gives young people, this gives a young person vision for others to pursue to be entrepreneurs. And I do believe there's enough room of growth in this community for there to be another funeral home. I'm sure that people would have a choice, just like we do with anything else in life. Now, there's always issues, but issues can be resolved. So I'm hoping that as a community that we would consider, not just our vital beliefs, but be open-minded. Understand that in order for a community to grow, there has to be what? New growth. Let Chester grow. You know what I mean? I've been living here all my life, and I love this small town, but we do need what? We do need opportunities. We need opportunities for our youth to grow, to learn, to be educated, and to have opportunities to do things that they pursue in their heart. So I'm hoping, as a concerned citizens that are here tonight, that you would be open-minded. And just think about when you came up, we all need what? We all need opportunities. So I thank you for taking a moment to hear me. And I knew you may think I'm a little biased. I am his father, but I am open-minded. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, next up we have Robert Shealy.
People don't.
Probably do.
Moses.
Yep.
Yeah, Ronnie.
Yep.
I'm Robert Shelley. Everybody call me Doc. Down in Edgeboro area, it's 4378 Promise Pride Drive. And I'm here with about the parking at the ballparks. It's it ain't a problem for me, but it's a problem for a lot of the people, because I get around, and I hope they can pass it, because there's a lot of them. We got grandkids, great-grandkids that goes over and play ball, and my wife, it's hard for her to walk that far too. And so I hope that y'all can pass it. How's Ronnie doing?
Good.
Good.
Thank you.
Y'all have it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up. Next up, we have Lavanya McCall.
Yes, I'm Lavinia McCall, 2421 Mountain Gap Road, Richburg, South Carolina. I'm here about the data center that they want to put beside our land. The residents around this data center facility will be picking up the cost of this by paying higher taxes and electric bills. Our property values will plummet drastically. The noise from these data centers are never ending. They run 24/7. The pollution these facilities emit will affect our drinking water and our air quality. The noise affects wildlife also. We have 4 generations living on our property from 6 months to 78. We don't want our land to be plagued with health issues. We want our great-grandchildren to grow up on this land without worrying about whether they are going to live to enjoy life or die with this monstrosity spewing contaminated pollution beside us. You have been sold a crock of lies by this company. Even York County is finding out the hard way. They should have done a more intensive study on the data centers and their owners. We found our dream place to live and raise our families 27 years ago, a quieter and more peaceful place, unlike Fort Mill had become. All I can say is these data centers are not going to provide mega jobs for Chester County residents, and you're not going to get large tax amounts from them because you are going to offer them a tax break for 40 years. If you want these data centers, all I can say is you need to put them next to your homes and families.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, ma'am. We got you. You're welcome. You're welcome.
All right, thank you. Next up, we have Manny Coleman.
Good afternoon, Councilman. I'm Manny Coleman. I reside at 1149 Coleman's Drive, and where they want to put a business at 1143 Coleman's Drive. Under all of you, I would like you to take a serious look. That's almost less than 75 feet from my bedroom. And I do not like a funeral home being next door. I mean, the environment is real pleasant. It's real good. Like was taken earlier, it's farmland, but it's great land. It's clean environment. Funeral home come there, it's gonna be congestion. Sometimes it still be congestion. And if the road get real bad, they're not gonna be able to come up in there, and we won't be able to get in there. Like you said, if emergency or something like that, and a funeral, what are we gonna do? So I think it'll be good for each one of you councilmen to look at it if that was in your side door or either in your back door. A funeral home, business you need, but that's the wrong place for a funeral home there at 1143 Coleman's Drive. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up, we have Carmen Moore.
Hi, my name
Carmen Moore, and I am Mitchell Campbell's mother-in-law. I favor into this funeral home. He worked so hard at what he wanted to become, and this is his dream. I favor, and there's a lot of us here now that stand behind him.
Could you state your address for me?
Oh, I'm sorry. 803 Butler Lake Road, Chester, South Carolina.
Thank you.
And I do favor in this funeral home. He's a respectful young man. He works hard. He did everything he needed to do right. I favor in this funeral home because he does what he needs to do. This is his dream, and we all stand behind him. And he's an honest young man. And what he says, he says he's gonna do, he's gonna do. So I just want to let y'all know, take a look at it, and if you have a heart in it and whatever y'all feel is right, you know, look at it in the best way you can. But he is a young man that we all know to be honest. So we do favoring for him.
Thank you. All right, so next up we have Cleveland, and I can't quite read the last name. Murphy? Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Cleveland Murphy. I reside at 117 McCluskey Street in the city of Chester. I am a recent retiree from the Chester County School District. I come in support of the funeral home business and the Campbell and Moore family. I feel he's a fine young person. I was part of his recent nuptial last year, and a lot of people represented here today is in favor of him proceeding his dream. So if you all take in consideration and proceed with his dream, thank you all.
Thank you. All right, so this next one, I cannot read the name, and I apologize. It's 3404 Mount Prospect Road. All right. And I apologize.
Good afternoon, Councilman. My name is Ella Franklin, and I reside at 3404 Mount Prospect Road in Chester. And as it already been said, that was Mitch's dream from a little boy to be in the funeral home business. And we always talk about our young people being bad, but we have all our people are not bad. But we have a respectable young man, and he's been working in the funeral home business, and like it's been said, this is his dream. So I am in favor of him having his funeral home wherever, and like someone already said, just look into it. And if you find it in your heart, we will be pleased to be favored with that funeral home for Mitchell Campbell. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so going down the list, I have two more, both of them under topic, right, funeral home. If you're speaking in favor of it, we have had 5 people speak in favor of it, so typically what we say is if you have something new to add to the conversation, then please come forward, but if it's kind of the same thing we've heard, then we see your name and we see that you're signed up. So number 12 is Donnie Dye, and number 13 is Carl Pendergrass. Do either of y'all want to speak tonight?
Good evening. My name is Donnie Dye. I'm 1201 Flint Hill Street, Rock Hill, South Carolina. So, no, I'm not a resident here, but I am a pastor of Zion Pilgrim Missionary Baptist Church. Have been for 18 years at 3030 Pinckney Road in West Chester. And so we're here at Zion Pilgrim in favor of the funeral home. I call him Jarrell. I know his name is Mitchell, but we call him Jarrell. And I just want to say I heard everything that was said about the environment and the traffic and those types of things. And I understand that, this state has government offices in place, as Jarrell stated, about the different environment the permits and those types of things that he has to have, talking about the air and, polluting different things. And so he has to go through those things to those agencies for them to clear him to have this funeral home. And so I just think that you have people in, have been hired to be sure that the quality of the land doesn't be harmed or the air pollution doesn't harm others or animals. And so if we trust them to say it's okay, I think that, we should trust who we've put in place for those kinds of things, and as well as the traffic and all of that. Jarrell is a kind person. He plays for Zion Pilgrim Baptist Church. He's a musician there. And he's just been working with us, but we've been knowing Jarrell, me and my wife have been knowing Jarrell since he was a little boy. And I've known him well in working in the funeral home business, and he's a kind person. And I'm saying all of this because he will work with whoever has problems, if it's the traffic, if it's, we need you to park here or do this or do. Jarrell will work with anybody. He would work with anybody. And I'm going to say this, and I'm through. I tried a hard time to get Jarrell to come and play for Zion Pilgrim, but Jarrell was so loyal to the church he was already at in Rock Hill that he wouldn't leave. I offered him everything to come to Zion Pilgrim. And it was only when that church had a change in administration, and I called him again, and I said, will you come? He said, well, Pastor, I'm free. He said, and I'll come. And Jarrell has not only come to play for us, but he's also went with us different places. I mean, he's just a loyal person. So I pray that this community would just give him a chance and talk with him, work with him, and you will see a kind gentleman that's just out to help somebody. Amen.
All right. Did I miss you, Ms. Roxanne? I did. I sure did. Let me, one moment. I'm going to get you. So I have one more person signed up with the funeral home, Carl Pendergrass. Would you like to speak to? Ms. Roxanne, you'll be next.
Carl Pendergrass, 5214 Courtyard Lane, Belmont, North Carolina. I'm a lifelong resident of Chester, just recently moved to Belmont, still own property here, and I'm here in Chester County at least 3 days a week, representing Mr. Jarrell Campbell. I will add just a couple things because I won't be redundant, but all the things that have been said, I 110% agree. But one thing I will make a short point is that Chester County is growing. You want your youth to stay in Chester County and not go outside to chase their dreams and to be successful in what they want to do. This young man is trying to plant his roots where he is now, and Chester needs you to be able to support what the county growth is and make sure that we try to keep our youth inside of Chester County that have the capabilities and the skill set and the mindset to do what he's trying to do. He's a very ethical person, and that's what I would say, give him that opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Roxanne.
Thank you, Chairman. Roxanne James, 3007 Steel Village Road, Rock Hill, South Carolina, Chester County. I'm going to change the subject to capital project sales tax. And I know the committee is here tonight to present their priority list for the new one. Hopefully the citizens of Chester County will vote for another penny sales tax. And I'm looking forward to the improvements on Dawson Drive Baseball Complex and the Great Falls Parks. But I want to talk about the current capital project sales tax. Rodman Sports Complex, to me, is not completed. I believe I've heard there are dirt issues. There's airflow problems in the dugouts and other things that need to be completed. And, of course, maybe the administrator will give us an update. But I would ask, since the administrator did say in a previous meeting that there's leftover capital project sales tax dollars, maybe we can go ahead and have a handicap playground at Rodman. Chester County needs one.
So I just say, let's complete the projects. I know there's a soccer improvement project at Rodman that needs completing too. So I don't know what our deadline is for these 2020 capital project sales tax. And thank you.
Thank you. All right, that's all I have signed up to speak. We had, I think, 13 people speak, and no one had to be called for time. So, and everyone spoke, so that was pretty good. Thank y'all. So that brings us to number 5, which is public hearing, ordinance 2026-08, which is the 6-month review and recommended edits to the subdivision and land development ordinances. Planning Commission approved 6-0. I don't have anyone signed up to speak on the sign-up sheet. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to that? Hearing no one, I'll close this public hearing. Next up is ordinances, resolutions, and proclamations. 6A is a proclamation in honor of Emergency Medical Services Week, EMS. So we have some folks attending tonight, and appreciate y'all being here tonight. We're going to do a proclamation, and then we'll take a picture. So, a proclamation in honor of Emergency Medical Services, EMS Week, whereas, I'm going to abbreviate, EMS is a vital public service delivering life-saving care to individuals in need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Whereas, timely access to high-quality emergency medical care significantly enhances the chances of survival and recovery for those experiencing sudden illness or injury. Whereas, EMS professionals play an essential role in bridging gaps in the healthcare system by providing vital out-of-hospital care, including preventative services, follow-up treatment, and access to telemedicine. Whereas, the EMS system is comprised of a dedicated network of first responders, emergency medical technicians, paramedics, emergency medical dispatchers, firefighters, law enforcement officers, educators, administrators, pre-hospital and emergency nurses, emergency physicians, trained members of the public, and other providers of out-of-hospital medical care. Whereas, the members of EMS teams, whether career or volunteer, devote countless hours to specialized training and ongoing education to refine and enhance their life-saving abilities. Whereas, it is fitting to honor and recognize the dedication, commitment, and contributions of emergency medical service personnel by designating a week in their honor. Now, therefore, I, Pete Wilson, Chairman on behalf of the Chester County Council, do hereby proclaim the week of May 17th through the 23rd, 2026 as Emergency Medical Services Week in appreciation of all EMS professionals who serve our community with courage, compassion, and excellence in the pursuit of saving lives and helping others in the community. This is done on May 18th of 2026. So we want to give y'all a round of applause. All right, are there any comments from council? We certainly want to thank our folks from EMS. So glad most of them have just stepped out, but so glad that they were here tonight and all that the work that they do. And when we have emergencies, there's no one we'd rather see than them. So thank them so much for their dedication. Next up is 6B, which is the second reading of ordinance 2026-09, Chester County Fiscal Year 2026-2027 Budget Ordinance to establish operating and capital budgets for the operation of the county government of Chester County, South Carolina, for the fiscal year commencing July 1st, 2026, to provide for the levy of taxes for Chester County for the fiscal year commencing July 1st, 2026, to provide for the expenditure of tax revenues and other county funds, to provide for other county purposes, to authorize the county to borrow money in anticipation of taxes, and to provide for the repayment of sums borrowed by the county governing body, to provide for the payment of tort claims and workers' compensation claims against Chester County, to provide for certain fiscal and other matters related to county government. Is there a motion on that one?
I'll make a motion to approve the second reading of ordinance 2026-09.
Second.
All right, so we will ask our treasurer, Mr. Darby, to come forward with a couple of small updates.
Good evening, members of council. Just wanted to do a quick update, give a couple small changes from first reading. So there are no changes in part one of the ordinance from first reading. The numbers basically stay the same from the first reading. We do have a couple small changes in part two. In our fee schedule, we were presented with a few slight changes by our fire service, and those are related to fire inspection fees. And so if you turn to page, I believe, page 12 of your ordinance, you'll see those fees listed, and I'll just go over briefly what those changes are. In section 1 of that fee schedule, the initial inspection fee, first reading, was at $90, and that was changed down to $50. That was an adjustment that they proposed that we've included in second reading. In section 1, under other, there's an added cost of $50. I think that was just omitted in the first reading, but that's all other inspections not listed above, so there's a $50 fee there. In section 2, originally the first reinspection fee was $50, and that was just changed to included in the first inspection, or in first inspection fee. So those were the changes under the fire service fees. Mr. Kel Benson is here to answer any questions from council on those changes. Basically, we do anticipate some changes in the numbers at third reading, and those basically are, we haven't heard back from the Association of Counties on our property and liability cost and our workers' comp cost, so there will be a change there that we anticipate, and I believe they're meeting the 20th. And so we will have those numbers probably this week that we'll update for third reading. And we'll also change third reading date. Originally, we had it at June 1st, but we're going to push that back to June 15th so we can get those numbers included properly in the budget. So there will be a gap between second reading and third reading. I think that's all I have. We'll also, at third reading, have a change for our purchase orders that we carry forward from prior year. And so that'll be a number that we include at third reading as well, and we'll go over that list at that point. Y'all have any questions for me, Kel, or for Andrea for EMS?
Yes, I have a question for Kel.
Okay.
During the first reading, we, Mr. Benson, I'm sorry, being formal. I had a question about them raising the charges, the EMS raising the charges on the ambulance rides. Mr. Benson and myself had a conversation on it where he explained it to me a little better. For the sake of the public and public listening, could you please reiterate, talk about those increases and how they will or will not affect the citizens of Chester?
Thank you, Councilman Guy. I'm going to have my Deputy Director, Andrea Pelkey, describe that. This is her forte, and she did a real eloquent job when we talked last week, so I'm going to let her answer that for you.
Thank you.
Okay, as we discussed last meeting and that we discussed on the phone, is that these rates, these increased rates, do not touch Medicare recipients or Medicaid recipients. That is a fixed fee, that is a fixed rate, it doesn't get increased. This is actually just for the private insurance companies. Right now, with the way the amount of money that we bill is below what they pay. So we're leaving money on the table with private insurance companies. So with increasing it, it's going to be what they pay. And just like anybody else, when they go to a doctor's office, they pay a copay. That's basically what this is also, is they're just paying their copay with what's left over. So we bill the insurance company, they pay the Medicare allowable, then they pay their 80%, and you're paying just your copay. It's not changing anything for Medicare and Medicaid clients.
So in layman's terms, myself, private insurance company, I would only just be paying my copay. The insurance company is actually absorbing the extra cost. And I wouldn't pay any more than what I would normally pay if I have a copay associated with my policy.
Yes, it's your copay amount that you would pay.
And then compared to all of the other counties in South Carolina, as far as what we're charging, where are we?
Right now, we are in the bottom 20%. So we are one of the lowest counties actually in the nation. And with this going up, we're still in the bottom 35%.
So we're still at the bottom. So, all right. So our prices are still good considering.
Nationwide, the average is $3,700. And right now, we're charging $1,200.
All right. Thank you.
Any other questions?
A follow-up to that. So when was the last time we adjusted these rates?
There was a small adjustment in 2016 where it went from itemized billing to blanket billing, which really didn't change the price of anything. It only was like $10 difference. So before that, I believe, was 2002.
And no changes since 2016?
Yes.
All right. What else?
Nah, she answered my question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Comments, Mr. Hester?
Can we just acknowledge this will be the fourth year again with the budget? I know that's always important to you all to acknowledge fourth year in a row that there's no millage increase for our citizens.
I just want to say thank you to Mr. Darby and our administrator and our staff for continuing to come up with a budget that does not cost our taxpayers more money. How as things are right now, we don't need to pay any more in taxes. So I appreciate you guys working hard to take care of that.
I wish I knew the exact number, but I don't think there are many other counties in the state that have done 4 years in a row. And so to be able to keep that going is pretty marvelous. And I know it really helps citizens on their taxes. So despite what might be said on social media, we have not raised taxes in 4 years. And that's been because we've passed budgets like this one that equal what we're bringing in. So that's definitely something worth mentioning.
Yeah, I just want to commend the staff for the hard work. You know, we sat for many hours with all the directors, with staff. I believe our requests from departments were at $48 million. We had about $37 million to bring that into with that, you know, to keep the millage level. So we all worked really hard to do that, and I appreciate the work of Mr. Hester and staff to get that where we needed to be.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. And I'd like to say, too, I think it's pretty mindful how we all work together. You know, we always communicate and try to figure out ways to make that happen. And I know it probably won't last forever, but continuing that trend of not raising taxes and doing things in a much better way, a smarter way. Let's work smarter. Thank you. And we do. Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? I'm going to put you on the spot, Mr. Hester, but we've recently, over the last 4 years, we've really made some real strides in EMS protection in Chester County. Could you speak to that just a bit?
And I think that's a good point. We can talk about the fact that, you know, we haven't had millage increase in 4 years now, 4 budget cycles. But what expense does that come with, right? Did we cut services? Did we eliminate services? Did we add or take away? And what I think we're most proud of is not so much just the fact that we kept the millage level, especially and when I came in here 3 years ago, a little over 3 years ago, Chester County was probably in one of the higher percentiles of when you compare millage rates. And we brought that down, and I'm going to bet you after this cycle, this fiscal year, we're going to be below the 50th percentile, and I would say we were in the above 75th percentile. But I say all that to say that it didn't come with an expense to this county. We found ways to do that, and our staff found ways to save money and to do things, to renegotiate contracts, and we've added staff. And EMS, you know, if you get me talking too much about EMS, I think that's one of the things that we have, there's a lot more work for us to do. I think if you want to talk about the quickest way we have in this community to help people in life-threatening situations, it's EMS. Law enforcement, firefighters, they're needed. But that EMS unit, its response time will make the difference in life or death for most people in most situations. And so we've been able to add EMS personnel. We've been able to add EMS. When I first came here, all of our EMS was stationed right here at this building, and then down in Great Falls, we have one unit. So can you imagine what the response time as a citizen that lives in our more western parts of our community, and even the more eastern or northeastern, southeastern. And so I'm happy to say that, and let me tell you, ambulances don't come cheap, about $400 just for the truck, $400,000 that is. And then when you put all the equipment in that truck and all the drugs, and then you have to staff them, they come at a very hefty cost. But we've been able to add a full-time ambulance out in our western part of our community, cutting response times from almost 37 minutes to down to about 12 minutes in many areas. And we still want to improve that. We've been able to add an EMS unit all the way out in Fort Lawn. That started this past year. And again, cutting response times and helping alleviate some of that, I guess, call log issues when our one truck in the eastern part of the community would have to transport. So, but I think that's where, if I was actually, it's funny you asked that question, because I was laying in bed last night. That's when I do a lot of good work, right? And I was just thinking, to myself, man, next year, we need to start right now focusing on EMS and starting to really think about how can we add more personnel to our EMS? How can we add more trucks? We got a grant last year for an EMS unit. We were the first county in South Carolina to ever get a CDBG grant for an EMS unit. And so that was through the hard work of our EMS personnel going out and doing LMI surveys and so forth. But we won that grant. And that's going to be a truck that replaces the one that's out in the western part of our community. But over these 4 years, even this year, as tight as the budget was this year, we added positions. We've added, I think, 7 positions, Mr. Darby, and we're able to give some, to still give a cost of living increase to our county employees, which is important to keep recruit and retain employees. And then over the past 4 years, not only EMS, first year we gave EMS, fire, and law enforcement raises to where we could compete. We were losing people to counties surrounding us. We gave our law enforcement personnel to where we're taking deputies from Lancaster, from York, and where we're able to recruit, retain those personnel. And we went from 0 full-time fire in this county to now we have 29 full-time firefighters in Chester County. And so those are additions that have been made to public service. That's only public service. That doesn't take into account all the other 15 departments that we have and our other elected officials. I mean, I think when you look at it, what we've been able to do with the finances and where we've come, and it doesn't go without a lot of pain, does it, Mr. Darby? Right. A lot of pain. And everybody, every department, I can look out there at department directors, they all can make a good case for why they need the money, And so, but our county is financially very stable. We have a fund balance that meets our ordinance at 50%. We have over $5 million in capital reserve account that has never, ever been there before. So financially, we're a very sound county, and we're growing in the right way. So I know you didn't ask for all that, but you got it.
That's good. All right, is there any more discussion? If not, I'll call for the question. Those in favor of the second reading, raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All in favor? All right, so that brings us to 6C, which is the first reading of ordinance 2026-11, to levy and impose a 1% sales and use tax, subject to a referendum in Chester County pursuant to the CPST Act, South Carolina Code, annotated section 4-10-300, to define the specific purposes and designate the projects for which the proceeds of the tax may be used, to provide for the maximum time for the imposition and collection of the tax, to provide for a countywide referendum and to prescribe the contents of the ballot question in the referendum, to provide conditions precedent to the imposition of the tax and conditions of or restrictions on the use of the tax revenue, to establish the priority in which the net proceeds of the tax are to be expended for the purposes and projects stated, to provide for the conduct of the referendum by the Chester County Board of Voter Registration and Elections, to provide for the payment of the tax, to provide for the issuance of bonds in one or more series, tax exempt or taxable, in an amount not to exceed the aggregate of $33,530,000, authorizing the county administrator to prescribe the form and details of the bonds, providing for the payment of the bonds, a pledge of revenues related to the bonds, providing otherwise for the disposition of the proceeds of the bonds, providing for borrowing in anticipation of the issuance of the bonds, providing for the disposition of property related to the bonds, and providing for other matters related to. Is there a motion on that? Do you want to take information first? Would you rather do information first? We'll do that. Before we have discussion, let's go ahead and take some information. Who do we want to start with?
I'm going to bring up Mr. Kozlark, our attorney who has handled the CPST process and recognize that we have, I think, all of our committee members. Okay, missing one committee member here in our audience tonight. And before Michael gets started, just make the comment to remind everyone that this penny referendum, this ordinance, this capital project sales tax is not new. It's to replace, I think Ms. James said that a minute ago, it's to replace the current penny that is in place. So we're not adding anything new with this.
Mr. Chairman, members of council, Mr. Hester, thank you. The members of the commission who are here this evening, although that was somewhat unplanned, I think we were going to try to have the whole band together for the public hearing. For the members of the public and for the county council, if you thought the title of the ordinance was long, the actual ordinance is almost 900 pages. So just for those of you who are listening to that thinking, man, what does this thing do? What I will remind council about that when this process started last year for the potential update to the existing capital project sales tax, these commission members who are volunteers that were appointed by both the county and one or more of the cities met over a number of months, a innumerable number of hours at, I think I counted it up, at least 8 meetings. It may have been a 9th meeting that I've forgotten. And most of those meetings were 2.5 to 3.5 hours. In addition to the work that they did alone reviewing applications that were submitted, there were 68 applications that were submitted for projects. That is where that large bulk of the almost 900 pages of this ordinance come from. So if you can imagine that someone handed you a book of 900 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper and said, please read this and come up with the list of projects that you want to approve and present to county council for it to vote yes or no. That's what these commission members have done. So, Mr. Chairman, the ordinance that is actually in front of council tonight for a first reading would, if it's approved at the next three readings in a public hearing, would approve the referendum question that was approved by the commission, which includes the list of projects and the amount that would be spent on each project. That list is not up for discussion with council other than to say yes or no. The commission is charged with coming up with the list, the priority for the list, and the amount of money that would be spent on each of those projects. And they have done that. That is what has been presented to County Council as the official resolution from the commission that was voted on unanimously by the 6 members of the commission. And again, for members of the public who may not recall the beginning of this process, yes, it is an even number of commission members, which of course means that there is no tie-breaking vote, as you might find in a 7-member body like County Council. So what you have is 6 commission members who unanimously approved the resolution that is in front of council, which is part of the ordinance that the county would be voting on. As has been consistent the last 3 times that the county has done this, if county council approves it at 3 readings at a public hearing, that would be placed on a ballot in November, and the citizens would then have the right to vote yes or no with whether the capital project sales tax that is currently in place would be continued beginning next May, and that would run, again, if it's approved, for another 7 years with those collections coming in, and the referendum question does provide, as have the last 3 referendum questions, that the county would be able to borrow in advance of those collections so that projects could begin immediately. Again, I'm happy to answer questions, but I want to mention for the second time since I've been up here, the tons of work that the commission members each time put in on this process, and it is a volunteer process. There is no payment. They don't even get a license plate on the back of their car for serving on this commission. They showed up, they were engaged, they had reviewed the materials, and they spent a lot of time discussing those projects and reviewing those applications and coming up with the list that's in front of council tonight.
Thank you. All right. Next up.
You want me to, so I will say that this is now a public document, obviously, of what the choices by the committee the council would be considering tonight to approve or deny. And so if there are any questions, again, the applications can range anywhere from 100 pages to 20 pages. I have some condensed versions of the cover sheets that explain the projects. If there's any questions with relation to any of the projects tonight, but I would urge that the public review them, that council review, and if there are any questions, please reach out to myself, Ms. Workman, and we can answer questions specifically about what the projects are if the name doesn't give it away itself, right? And so, but be happy to answer any questions from council tonight as well.
And we're going to invite the chair of the committee to come forward just to say a few remarks about the process.
With that, yes, sir.
We can do that.
Absolutely.
I'd like to do that.
Absolutely.
So, Ms. Covis, I know you chaired this committee, and we'd just like to hear a few remarks about how things went.
Thank you very much. I'd like to introduce our committee. I'm Susan Covis. I was appointed the chair, and I was appointed by the city of Chester. Mr. Melvin Jackson is here. He was our vice chair. He was appointed by county council. Pam Temple is our secretary. She is on this was her anniversary trip, so she's not here. She was appointed by county council. Mr. Eddie Rayleigh was appointed by the town of Lowry's. Ginger Sharp was appointed by town of Richburg. And Reverend Steve Bishop is here. He was appointed by the county council. So first of all, this was a fascinating project. We all learned so much about government and about Chester County. It was hard at times, but we really had a wonderful committee. Everyone was very dedicated and very serious about this work. And I'm just very grateful to have had the opportunity to serve on this commission. I wish every citizen could sit and do this. We met 8 times by my count from August the 25th until April the 13th. We spent our Christmas and New Year's reading projects and rating them individually, and we got to know each other really well. I'm proud to say we had lively discussion, but we never came to blows, so that was really good. Everybody was respectful. Initially, we worked on the referendum question and worked on the application. By September 22nd, we had completed the application process and had it ready to be sent out. We received the applications back December the 19th, so hence we worked over Christmas and New Year's. And we were given 3 huge notebooks containing 64 projects. 3 projects came in later, and we voted to accept them as part of our process, and so we had 67 projects. And the projects mostly were in different categories. We had public safety, police and fire, which was very important, recreation, which we felt like touched a lot of people, and then the rehabilitation of buildings around. We were very mindful, I want to point this out, of creating a list that touched every part of the county. We felt that was very, very important. And to that point, at one meeting, we asked Ms. Oliver for maps of Chester, colored markers, sticky tabs, so we could make sure. We even took colored construction paper and put the name of each area and made sure we had a project under each part of the county. And then after choosing the projects, we reordered them so that the voter, when they looked at the list in the voting booth, would see something that touched that part of their community. So, for instance, the top 10 projects have something from every part of the county, and then so on and so forth. We did that all the way to the bottom of the list. And there were so many great projects, really. I don't think there was really a bad project, so they were really great. It was hard to choose one over another. At one point, we called in 2 of the mayors, the City of Chester and the Great Falls mayor, to ask questions and to help us prioritize projects that they felt like their citizens would want, because we couldn't choose all of them. But in the end, we felt like we had a good list, and one that would touch every part of the community, making us safer, giving us recreational opportunities and economic development growth, which would benefit all the citizens of Chester. So that was our process.
Thank you very much for that update and for those introductions. Thank you. So this time, I would entertain a motion from council.
I make a motion that we accept the first reading of ordinance 2026-11.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to accept and a second. Is there a discussion?
Just like to thank the commission for all of your hard work and for allowing the opportunity for extra input, from the town of Great Falls, and what was the other one? City of Chester. Thanks for all your hard work. Good, that helps. Yeah. You're less likely to fight if you're not hungry, right?
That's true. Anything else? Call for the question. Those in favor, raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
All in favor? Again, I'd like to thank the commission as well for being here tonight and for those words as well. Thank you all for your hard work. Next up is 6D, the first reading of ordinance 2026-12 entitled only, authorizing the conveyance of easement rights to Duke Energy Carolinas LLC for the purpose of utility infrastructure construction and maintenance at property located at or about the Chester County Animal Shelter, designated as tax map number 078-0000-233-000, and providing for other related matters.
I make a motion we approve the first reading of ordinance 2026-12.
I'll second.
All right, have a motion and a second. This being a first reading, do you have a few words on that one?
I'll speak to it if you don't mind, Chairman.
Yeah, please.
Thank you so much. This ordinance provides for utility easement to Duke Energy.
Hey. Thank you. Oh, it's over with in there?
All right, so we're getting some feedback from
Ma'am?
Mr. Yep.
I'm going to continue.
Go ahead. Yes, ma'am.
It provides a utility easement for Duke Energy to the new animal shelter that's being constructed.
All right. Is there any other questions? All right, we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Call for the question. Those in favor, raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. We've got 6E, which is Resolution 2026-08, authorizing the transfer of certain personal property and providing for other related matters. Before we call for the any motions on that, Mr. Hester, do you have any words on that?
Yes, sir. That is just a resolution to allow us to sell at auction based off of our procurement policy, a old skid steer that we have that's a John Deere 333E. It's been out at the landfill for years, and it's gotten to the point where it costs us more to maintain than its useful operation. So just allowing us to get rid of that as policy states.
All right, thank you. Is there a motion?
I make a motion, we approve Resolution 2026-08.
I'll second.
All right. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. All in favor. Next up is 6F, which is Resolution 2026-09, identifying the capital projects as part of a program of general obligation borrowing for calendar year 2026, allocating amounts from the capital project funds and providing for other related matters. Again, Mr. Hester.
So this resolution does two things. Exhibit A gives you a list of our rolling stock capital items in this year's budget. As is customary, those were presented in workshops. Council's had those for a couple of weeks to review at this point. And so what this resolution does, it allows us to, number one, bond those as we do annually with our rolling stock, which is to the tune of about $1.9 million to pay for that capital each year. And then it allows us also, as per Ordinance 2024-5, gave us the authority to use a portion of that capital reserve to supplement the rolling stock each year. And so this resolution will authorize both. It's going to be in the total of $2.480720 million, and then we will use $500,000 out of capital reserve, bringing the total bond to $1,980,720. So this resolution just authorizes us to move forward with the process of bonding.
All right, thank you. Is there a motion?
Make a motion to approve Resolution 2026-09.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. Those in favor, raise your right hand and say aye.
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 All right, that's all in favor. Brings us to the administrator's report. Mr. Hester.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, council members, everyone. So a couple of things I'll go through real quick. And Ms. Roxanne James always steals my thunder, you know. And so she brought up Rodman, so it probably would be good to go ahead. I was going to wait till next week to talk about that, but I'll talk about it briefly tonight. And then we'll talk about it again next week as well when we present to council. But first and foremost, what everybody is very concerned about is Memorial Day is next Monday, right? Everybody knows that. And what are people most concerned about? Recycling centers in the landfill, right? Are they going to be open? So if I get phone calls about anything, it's those two things, right? And so they are going to be open. They're going to be under normal operating hours for Memorial Day. That's how dedicated those employees are, but we will keep those open. I'd also like to, while we're talking about the landfill, but recognize our Chester County Public Works Department. This is also, while it's EMS Week, it is also Public Works Appreciation Week. And so I'd like to recognize them for their very important role that they play in supporting county operations, the work of our facilities maintenance, our auto maintenance, our roads, our recycling, our landfill, our parks and recreation, how they help keep Chester County safe, efficiently operating, and reliable to our residents. And we want to thank these county staff. They maintain, and how many of you have been through our Citizens Academy out there? A couple of you. There's a lot, so we've got open spots in August. I encourage all of you to sign up, and you'll get to meet all these departments and see all the hard work and the things that they do. But we do appreciate the dedication and professionalism and continued commitment to Chester County. And we have our Public Works Director, Ms. Bagley, is on the front row, Ms. Devin Bagley. And so thank you for all you do as well. I will give a quick update on the animal shelter, because you kind of pinned me down, Mr. Wilson, a couple of meetings ago about the date on the animal shelter, and I told you, I think I remember saying the second week in June, roughly somewhere in there. And so we're still on track for that, except we did get notice that our kennel doors won't be delivered until July 7th. So sometimes it's hard to get materials and things, and so with the 126 kennel doors, those are expected July the 7th. So I'm going to have to submit to you today that we're going to be at least July 7th before we get those doors. You can't put animals in a cage without doors, right? And so that's a little update on the animal shelter, but all is moving along very well. We got a nice thank you letter from the Chamber of Commerce and the Tourism Center specifically about council's contribution to making the building safer and fixing the wall. That is completed. And they just wanted to send us a thank you. If anyone would like to read this tonight, I have it here. But it's a letter from the chamber just thanking you for the contribution to help make that building what it is and to fix the wall and the issue that they had. And then lastly, Ms. James brought up the Rodman Complex. And so I think many of you know we had to work right up until opening day to get those fields ready. Obviously, anytime that you have a project of that size, there's always the things that, man, we want to fix, some little work that we wanted to do. And so while we wanted the kids to be able to play on those fields too this year, and I think that went fantastic, having the fields that we had. Now, we always have that hindsight that we go out there, it's 2020, right? We go out there and we're like, God, I wish we would have done this, or maybe we should have thought about this. And the parking, Ms. Thompson, that was a very good thing to bring to our attention. And there's things like that we need to hear and see. And I was out there for closing ceremonies, which would have been the Saturday, and I saw all the people out there as well. And there was a lot of things that we noticed. So thank you for bringing that to our attention, and we will work on that. But as far as the dirt goes on infields, yes, the dirt that was originally brought in, dirt takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of time to settle. Ball fields, they have to be conditioned. You actually buy bags of conditioner and you mix them in, and you have to drag it and work it and drag it and work it and drag it and work it. And one of the things we realized is that the dirt that we had brought in and that was just in the bid for the project didn't have as high a sand mix as we wanted. So we went out and we tested a field. We brought in a different mix of dirt, put in conditioner to see what changes it made in that field, and it did an amazing job. And so we were out there last Friday. We actually met the league out there last Friday, myself, Ms. Bagley, some of our public works staff. And so we spent some time talking about what worked, what didn't work. And so we went ahead and started work on the other 3 fields on the dirt on those. We just don't want to interfere with All-Stars too, so we kind of got to work around All-Stars because we are hosting the All-Stars tournament this year at Rodman Fields. And so the dirt work is underway, making sure that we have bases at every length at every field, making sure that we have clean bases. You know, how do we make sure that when it comes game time, we go out there and we paint those bases and do things because they get muddy, it gets dirty. The soccer field, or let me back up, the airflow, some of those issues, bathrooms, you know, the contractor put toilet paper holders in there, and they're about that big, you know, and when you got that many people coming in, that doesn't work. So we're putting industrial toilet paper holders, you know, the kind when you go to convenience stores or QTs, they have the big rolls, you hold all the 4 or 5 rolls. We just need people to quit flushing all that down the toilet at once, you know. Instead of paper towels that people run out of constantly, we're going to put hand dryers in there. And we do have some excess money that we're going to come back to council. There's some safety things, some grade issues, some fencing issues that we want to add some fencing to keep the foul balls off. But we're working on, there's a committee that's actually supposed to, I think by this Friday, am I right, Ms. Bagley, or is it next week sometime, that the committee's bringing the quotes for everything else additional out there to me. And so our goal is to bring it to council next meeting. And so it was the additional improvements and soccer. On the note of soccer, we actually started, we signed the PO for that to regrade the bottom fields. There was money, there was soccer improvement money that was left there. And so we went ahead and signed that purchase order to start the grading of those bottom fields and to resod, or put new topsoil and get new grass growing on those to where they'll be playable. The other fields, all of the other fields that have been there, we need to make them ADA compliant. We need some new score boxes. We need to fix some foul poles. We need to fix some scoreboards. And so one of the things this committee's doing is, and we hope to have it ready for the next council meeting, is to bring to you all, just like we've done in the past with that excess CPST funds. Now, while Rodman Complex and the soccer are approved for use of excess funds, as always, we'll bring that to council to approve, because I'm sure that'll be a healthy dollar amount of additional items to do. But while we're out there, while we're working, and while those are approved projects to use that money for, I think it's beneficial for us to give you guys the option to do that. There was a couple, Ms. James mentioned an airflow issue. We are looking at the dugouts and the design of those. I think we can fix those. We tossed around a couple ideas with the leagues, maybe cutting some holes in the side, each long side, and putting in a nice fencing there to let the air flow through, which is customary in a lot of dugouts if you've been around and seen. So we're working on some of those things. And while, you know, there's some improvements to be made, I think the group is working very hard. The concessions seem to work out really well this year, and there was some other, there's some other concrete we need. We're going to extend our emergency road and a sidewalk, so in case a stretcher has to get up to the main part of the complex. There's some things we kind of learned over the season. But we are working to those, and if you're interested in that, be here at the next meeting, and you'll hear the proposal, and hopefully we'll have nice pictures to put up as well with all the proposals. And with regard to the ADA playground, there was some discussion of, there was a couple of quotes that were brought in on that. They were very expensive. I've been to a couple of other parks around the state of South Carolina and in other states recently. Not on the county's dime. I was on vacation and went. I see these parks and I got to stop in and look at them, right? And that's really bad when you're on vacation. You see a ball field, you're like, I'm going to stop and look at this. Or you see these ADA playgrounds and you're like, I want to see this. And I took pictures, you know, and brought back to our group. And I think we can do something out there. And it's just trying to figure out exactly what equipment's needed and to get real quotes on that equipment. But we are working on that as well.
Mr. Hester, since we're talking about ball fields, where are we with a timeline on the Dawson Drive ball field, getting something going, seeing some actual progress being made on that facility?
Well, I'm happy to say that, you know, the first step there was for us to get the ownership of that land, in which we did that this past year. That was submitted as a capital project sales tax initiative for this new referendum, and I'm happy to say that it's very high up on the list that was chosen. It's actually within the first 10 items that the committee chose, and so that is one of the items to completely redo. We'll have some renderings of what that could look like for you all as well in the near future. Once we get through second vote, I'll probably start to work on some renderings for all the projects that would necessitate a rendering for council for you to see what that looks like. But this, if the penny is voted back in November, which I think our residents, all of our community understands the need for that and the level of projects it can fund, then that project will be one of the first projects that's started. So love to say that we start that project in first quarter or so of 2027.
Thank you.
And Mr. Hester, make sure we get the same thing Rodman getting now, because Rodman getting a lot of stuff. Chester need that same thing. The same thing you doing in Rodman need to be done in Chester.
So I don't want to pit, you know, Rodman and Dawson together and say one's going to be better than the other.
You want it to be the same way?
But yes, there is. It's very comparable as far as the number of fields and the the parking work and the concession stand and new bathrooms. All those things are very, very important. I mean, in my first 3 years here, I heard about bathrooms, right? And rightly so. And so we're actually at Rodman, not only did we add all the bathrooms, and I think Mike Levester made us put 13 women's stalls in, 13. And but we also are refurbishing the old bathrooms that are down by the soccer fields to make them handicap accessible, because they were not. You had to go through the grass, and then they weren't big enough to even get a wheelchair inside those. And so we're making a lot of good progress.
Dawson Drive only has one set of bathrooms, correct?
Right now it doesn't, it has porta-johns, I believe, is that right? And then the building, the old building has some bathrooms in it, but it's not generally open. So all that on the new will have
Good to hear.
more bathrooms.
Thank you.
So with that, Mr. Chairman, unless there's any more questions for me, that concludes my administrator's report.
All right. Thank you. That brings us to number 8, which is consent agenda. 8A is the third reading of ordinance 2026-08. B is the second reading of ordinance 2026-10. C is the second reading of CCTA 26-04. D is the second reading of CCTA 26-05. E is the second reading of CCTA 26-06. F is the second reading of CCTA 26-07. If I could, I would request that we would pull off E and F, because I'd like a little extra explanation from Planning and Development Director Jeremy Ward. So is there a motion to, if there's no objections to that, is there a motion for consent agenda items A through D?
I'll make a motion to accept the consent agenda, items A through D.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion to approve. Is there any discussion? Call for the question. Those in favor, raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
All right, so 8E is the second reading of CCTA 26-06, Chester County Zoning Ordinance, text amendment to Chapter 4-123, ID3, General Industrial District Uses, Conditional Uses, number 3, Data Centers. Planning Commission voted 6-0 to approve. So if I could, I'd call our Planning and Development Director, Jeremy Ward, forward. Give us an explanation here of, we had this during first reading, but since we had a few questions during citizens' comments about it, a few statements, I wanted to provide a little more information here.
Chairman Wilson, County Council, happy to be here this evening and to discuss this a little bit more. As noted, we do have some new members of the public here this evening. And over the past few weeks and over the past few months, really, I've had a lot of calls and meetings regarding this from citizens trying to explain this to them and answer questions. Even this morning, had a couple more calls in the meeting scheduled for Wednesday. I will open by saying, as you know, it's been our desire throughout this entire process to be as transparent, to explain what we are doing to people as much as possible. And as part of this, I will say to any of those who may be here or may be watching online, please reach out to me if you have any questions following this meeting, and I would be happy to meet with you or call you or email you. So that offer is always on the table. As mentioned, as we've been working on these regulations for the past months, the priority has been transparency, has been communicating to the public. We have had a public workshop solely on data center regulations. I have been working with planning directors around the South to get information, firsthand information from them, and to hear all sides, to be sure that you as the County Council has the most balanced, up-to-date information possible, and that the citizens are fully informed of what is happening and what we're doing. And, excuse me. So with that being said, let me also address, as I've been talking with citizens, let me address a few perhaps rumors that may be out there and clear that up. First of all, we have not had an application for a data center coming into Chester County yet. That has not happened. We have not had anyone submit a rezoning application to come to Chester County. However, just like every other county in South Carolina, we have had data center developers or investors come to the county, to Mr. Long, with questions regarding our county as suitable sites. Every county in South Carolina is having interest. This is a growing industry. But these two regulations, these text amendments, are not for any specific data center project or company, and they are not for any specific piece of property. That has not happened yet. What these are regulations that we are putting in place that you are considering as a county council to regulate this new industry, to protect the county and be sure that all factors are considered. Chester County currently does not have any regulations dealing with data centers in place. Nothing. We have no laws. So this is the first new set of laws to regulate this brand new industry. Most counties in South Carolina neither have the regulations in place or are working on them, so we are very far ahead. Without calling any names in particular, there are at least 5 counties in South Carolina that have either successfully recruited or attempted to recruit a data center without having the laws in place, and now are coming back in and putting the laws after the company is already in place. We're doing the opposite. We don't want any company, regardless of industry, taking advantage of a loophole in our laws because this is a very new industry. As you know, you as the county council are cracking down on some of these loophole, new emergent type industries. Vape shops, we spent a lot of time on a few months ago. This is a very new industry our laws did not cover. So this is the exact same thing. And very briefly, Mr. Wilson, let me break down what this is. This puts the new regulations in concerning data centers and says what zone they're allowed into. Again, we don't want any loopholes for permission for one of these companies to construct or to invest in Chester County before it gets the proper approvals. So this regulation would ensure that county council gets the final say on any new data center coming into our county. You'll also see, and this is the second part, CCTA 2607, around 3 pages of ordinances covering every potential negative impact of data centers. We want to protect our county and be fair and not allow loopholes. So this covers all of the water use for cooling and the specific methods that are approved of water consumption for cooling to protect our water supply. It imposes some of the most rigorous setbacks of any county in South Carolina so that any data center will be set far back from residential property lines and will be primarily, if not completely, obscured from the road. It covers the landscaping that would be required around such buildings, the generator use and the specific times that generators are allowed to be used to power these, or for testing and for emergency purposes as well. It has over 1 page on noise restrictions. Noise restrictions are a common concern around the South regarding data centers. They do produce an incredible amount of noise for cooling for some of them, although the newer technology is drastically reducing that to the point where some planning directors I talked with stated that it was almost inaudible from the outside. But that's not always the case, and so we put very, very robust noise protections in here. In fact, as you know, we hired a noise acoustic consultant to help write these to be sure that the citizens would be protected from noise. Lighting is covered, vibration, the height, decommissioning, and enforcement. All of these are covered in detail to be sure that fair regulations are put in place. I'll just say in conclusion, I believe, based on my research, these are some of the most robust regulations of any county in South Carolina. I think that if a data center does request to come into the county, this has a process in place to be sure that there are no loopholes, that the citizens are protected, and that they will be regulated strictly so as not to represent a burden on the residents. Thank you. I'm here if you have any questions.
Yes, the setback regulations. Can you speak on how robust ours are at this point?
Yes, sir. So that is Clause B on Text Amendment 2607. So this requires that structures be set back a minimum of 500 feet from an adjoining industrial or commercial property line, but if it's a residential property line, there's a required 1,000-foot setback. Of note, if there are trees within that 500 or 1,000 feet, all of them must be kept. So a company is not allowed, as we have seen elsewhere in South Carolina, to come in, completely clear-cut the site, and then have the 1,000 feet that's just empty space. However, County Council does have the ability, based on the specific site and its surrounding, at your discretion, to reduce those setbacks only by up to 25%, with some also noise limitations if they are reduced as well.
And to also reiterate, no one has applied for a data center in Chester County.
Correct.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. So, is there a motion, council?
I make a motion to accept the second reading of CCTA 26-06.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
I just want to say, I think ordinances like this is important so that we don't get caught with a data center trying to actually apply here because, you know, they're going to at some point ask. And if we don't have any rules in place, we can get caught with one and it'd just be terrible for the citizens. So I think putting this text amendment in here and putting these rules in place beforehand is responsible. Thank you, Mr. Ward, for your work and helping us come up with these rules and regulations.
I would like to say also, we're doing this in a proactive measure, not reactive, so that's always a good thing. And to my knowledge, if I'm not mistaken, I think we are possibly the first county in the state to actually get ahead of the data center issue coming in and so kind of blindsiding some folks. So you know, I'm not certain on that, but I'm almost positive. But I just want to say that's a really good indication of how well we are thinking of our county and what we're trying to do and protect here.
Yeah.
All right, is there anything else? With that, I'll call for the question. Those in favor of the second reading of CCTA 26-06, raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those in favor. Next is AF, which is the second reading of CCTA 26-07, Chester County Zoning Ordinance Text Amendment to add a new chapter entitled Chapter 5-800 Supplemental Regulations, Data Center Design Standards Required. Planning Commission voted 6-0 to approve.
Make a motion to approve the second reading of CCTA 26-07.
Second.
All right, we've got a motion and second to approve. Is there any discussion?
Just the same thing. You know, data centers are something that, you know, touchy subject. And, you know, when you hear these things, I just like the fact that, you know, we get the right information out so that people will understand that there is no data center in Chester County at this point. We're getting ahead of the game here in case one does try to come.
Right. I want to encourage anyone to reach out to Mr. Ward with questions. He can get you the answers you want. So that's the best place you can get really good information. We appreciate your explanation tonight, Mr. Ward. I thought that was on point. Any other discussion? Call for the question. Those in favor of the second reading of CCTA 26-07, raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
All in favor. Brings us to 9A, which is a consideration of annual renewal retail strategies. Bring forward our Economic Development Director, Robert Long.
Mr. Chairman, Council, thank you so much. I got myself an Economic Development Director, and Karen. She actually will be handing out a copy of a presentation, a report from Retail Strategies that goes into a bit more detail than the PowerPoint that we'll be going through. But we would be hitting the high points of the relationship we've had for the last 2 years with Retail Strategies. And I think it's also pretty fortuitous that you had the first reading to put the 1-cent sales tax on the ballot, because one of the things we're trying to do with growing retail is it creates more, hopefully stop some of the retail leakage we have to our neighbors, York and Lancaster County in particular, but also allows us to increase the value of that capital, program and the amount of money it can generate by having more retail shopping opportunities in our community. So I think this is something that, we have discussed for, I guess, a couple years ago when we started this relationship with the Retail Strategies. But at the same time, we appreciate the opportunity to get back in front of council to talk about some of the things that we've done with them. So we're really quick at a glance. We do have currently 15 active projects with Retail Strategies and some form of their decision-making. We marketed over 10 properties, and that includes over 29 brands, because in some cases they are marketing to multiple similar types of businesses. And then also multiple developer relationships have been established. The one thing I will point out real quick is oftentimes, I'll give the example of Publix. People want a Publix. One is that you got to have kind of check the boxes to what a Publix is looking for. And so having these subject matter experts who can basically say, well, at that particular location, you don't quite check the boxes that they're looking for. While you couldn't do a Publix, there may be other grocery stores that you would be a fit for. The other thing is which of those stores are growing, because within the industry, some stores at any given time are contracting, they're reducing stores, some are in a growth mode, others not. And so having those subject matter experts that can tell you which ones are growing, which are not, so you can focus your attention on the ones that obviously that would be good fits for us that are growing. And then the last thing I will point out real quick on this slide is oftentimes you're not talking directly to Publix, you're talking to the developer who develops the Publix, because oftentimes Publix will basically rely upon those developers to basically give them direction of where they should do their next facility. And so having that relationship with the developer is extremely important. So it just really kind of highlights some of the active projects you see. So obviously we are working, I guess, several, anchor grocery stores. And so we have like anchor shopping centers. That's typically when you have a bigger, square footage store. And then, of course, with that, it does create other opportunities for, smaller stores that can locate. Some of them can also create out parcels that can be sold for like restaurants and so forth. So acre shopping stores are pretty exciting because that's when you get the bigger square footage store, but it does definitely create other opportunities in and around that surrounding area. We all do have some quick service restaurants that are also evaluating the former Hardee's, as you all are aware, that closed just a few weeks ago formally. And we do have several active projects that is looking at that. And then, of course, we also have a lot of activity looking out at Exit 65. There are several areas where there are out parcels. The one thing I'll point out there, oftentimes those are available for lease, and some stores do have a mindset that they want to own, so that can be a limiting factor at times. We do have one active project looking at the former Big Lots that closed last year. And we do also have a big box retailer also looking around the entrance to the Stanton development. That is one of the only residential developments thus far that is actually on Highway 9. And for your quick reminder, that boulevard entrance that goes into development, there was roughly 39 acres at the front that was already zoned GC. That actually was not part of the rezoning for the development, for that particular project, because it already had that GC zoning. But that creates an opportunity for a particular acre shopping center. And then there's also property across the street at the south side. And that also, when they added that median cut there, it was actually designed for potential future signalization as well. And we also do have a grocery store located over in actually Great Falls as well. A lot of that has to do with not necessarily the Great Falls growth itself, but right across the river in the Lancaster County, there are thousands of homes, with Great Falls actually being the closest community, and that has driven some interest for an acre grocery store in Great Falls as well. I'll let Karen talk a little bit about this.
Thanks, Robert. Good evening, Council. So just to highlight some of the things we've been doing with retail, one of the benefits of working with Retail Strategies is having the ability to partner with them on some of our trade shows and the marketing events. So ICSC is one. It's the International Council of Shopping Centers. They have a big show in Charlotte every year that our Retail Strategies team actually has a booth. And so they host a lot of meetings there, and it's been really helpful to partner with them at that show. And they're actually at the big ICSC event in Vegas this week representing us as well. And then Retail Live is another type of retail event. They're a little bit more boutique style. They're less of a trade show, more focused on one-on-one meetings. And these are a lot different than the industrial type of trade shows that we typically attend. You have a lot of access to these developers that Robert mentioned that work with the Publix and with some of the coffee shops that we're looking to hire or to attract here. So it's really helpful to have Retail Strategies partner with us on these events.
Thanks, Karen. So there are some hurdles. The one thing with us is, they are, we're trying to get ahead. Obviously, we have some rooftops, and now that you have rooftops, there is an opportunity to attract retail. One of the issues, which is, I say issue, it's more of a frustration on my part, is all the growth that we've had over the last few years hasn't really showed up at the Census Bureau yet. So if you go to census.gov, I think they show us of adding like literally less than 50 people since the last census. And obviously, if you live here, that is a little bit of a lucrative statement, but it is the data they have available. The one thing I will say with Retail Strategies, they don't strictly rely on census data. They have multiple sources of collecting the data to try to talk about what's been happening on the ground here, including pulling data from the post office for zip codes. As new addresses are added, they also are able to add that information. There are some hurdles. One of those is property assemblages. So the area we've seen the most interest right now is the greater Exit 65 area and the Cochran Bypass. The Cochran Bypass, you have a lot of older retail, a lot of older, smaller strip centers. And what we see there is an opportunity for is where you could take several parcels next door, assemble them together, create this assemblage, bulldoze it, so to speak, level it, and then start over with something new and fresh at that location. But when you do assemblage, oftentimes it's not the same property owner, or it could be some family owners that are maybe at odds with each other. But assembling property is a bit of a challenge, but at the same time, it does create an opportunity to take some older retail and basically, freshen it up with an opportunity for redevelopment. As we already mentioned, we do have population growth. Unfortunately, same thing, it doesn't quite show up with the census, but there are ways we have been working to try to promote the fact that we are growing. And then, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, we do have quite a bit of parcels out around the Exit 65 area that are lease only. And for us, as you try to cast as wide a net as you can for possible opportunities, whether that's a traditional economic development project like a manufacturer, or in this case, a retail options allows you to cast a wider net. But when you have retail only and they're not interested in selling, it doesn't mean you cannot market that, because there are some retail established that only want to lease. But then it does take you out of commission for folks that actually want to own at those facilities. So it does kind of limit your ability to attract. The one thing we also did just do, kind of one of our outgoing intern, Emma, we actually did a post about the Hardys. And as part of that post, now granted, I will point out this is not scientific. This is not scientific whatsoever. But as part of that post, we asked, hey, what would you like to see at that former Hardee's location? And this just kind of gives you a quick summary of the responses that the citizens provided us. Obviously, Chick-fil-A by far the most number one. I would love a Chick-fil-A. But Cookout was also a very popular one. Coffee shop is another one that we see quite often. But that sort of gives you an idea of the type of things we actually heard from the citizens. And again, this is not scientific, but it does give you kind of a snapshot of where the mindset of the local residents are. So in short, we are winding down year 2 of this 3-year contract. It currently expires, I guess, end of May of next year. There, so there was an ability to, at y'all's request, that we did have an out call. So if for some reason council did not want to continue the relationship, there is an opportunity to pull out. Now, the other thing with this, our Chester Development Association did agree to pay for 1/3 of the cost. So although, so in essence, it is, I guess, a cost, $60,000. $40,000 of that is borne by the county. $20,000 of that is being paid by the Chester Development Association. But from my perspective, it allows us to have some subject matter experts in, I guess, an area that's a little bit different than our traditional economic development. And also help us get ahead of the growth and kind of control the destiny by basically attracting the retail that we would like to see in our community versus sort of just sitting back and letting it happen. But at the same time, we understand, there is a cost associated with that. With that, I believe, we're happy to answer any questions that council has of us.
We got one for you. So, would it be fair to say that Retail Strategies really targets the chain stores, chain businesses more so than,
I would say
more so
franchises are a
Right.
big focus of theirs. Particularly when you go to shows, you do have chains, you have franchisees in there. But I think with the franchises, there are opportunity for local folks, entrepreneurs, to be a franchisee. So it doesn't necessarily mean that company has not got a local, ownership of that particular opportunity.
So my follow-up question to that is, in what ways, whether it's within this contract with Retail Strategies or in other ways, can we make sure that we're supporting our locally owned businesses as well?
Sure. So one of the things is, I guess I will say is, give an example of Chick-fil-A. We already have several chicken restaurants over here on the Cochran Bypass. I personally would rather see a Chick-fil-A at X65 where we do not have that sort of opportunity. Same thing with coffee. There are several coffee shops here. It doesn't mean there's not room for something that's a little different, like such as a drive-through coffee shop. But as these opportunities do come in to myself and Karen, we do kind of look to see where they would potentially fit. And there are some restaurants that may fit at X65 that we do not feel would be a good fit here. And so we do some, I guess, a little bit of nudging in direction behind the scenes as to what we think would be a good fit for that particular location in the community.
To the question of supporting our small businesses, though, what are some things economic development can do or does do to support our small, locally owned businesses?
Sure. Well, I will give an example. One of the small-owned business that we have that's actually not a retailer in the traditional sense is, that we are working with one of them right now, looking at the former Hardee's. For it would not be turned into a restaurant, but it turned into a different type of establishment. And so that is a case where we are actually working with the local small business owner to have that discussion.
I would just say, my comment would be, we're putting a lot of focus on the franchises and the chain businesses, and they're important, they're good, but we don't want to lose focus on supporting our locally owned businesses because they're the ones who return their money right back into this community.
Oh, sure, and as I mentioned, we don't want to hurt them either by bringing in something that's going to potentially put them out of business. Understand that? Yes, sir.
Exactly. So that's really my only concern. I think, this is the third year of the contract. If council wants to go another year, I'd probably support that, but end of this 3 years, unless we have a lot to show for it, I'd be ready to maybe look elsewhere for how we can support the local economy.
And we sort of advise them as well, in that we've seen a lot of activity, interest, but at this point, we do understand that it takes sometimes maturing of a relationship over a few years. But this is that third year, and we are expecting some results.
Last comment. So I know they provide a lot of data.
Yes, sir.
And that data is something that y'all are able to hold on to, share, educate with.
Yes, sir.
Okay. We need to make sure at the end of our 3 years that we have all that in hand and that it's updated, ready to go.
Yes, sir. And we did add a retail section to our website as well, and we do have some of that data available for anybody to go to our website to check out that particular section of our website.
Any more questions for Robert?
I was just going, he kind of stole my question. But yeah, that's what I was, it's been 3 years and, what have we actually gotten? When do we expect to actually see some results from this? So I'm kind of with Chairman Wilson right here, after this third year, we may have to.
No, we've already had our
else.
own internal discussions. If we're here at the same time next year without an actual project we can point to, we're going to have our own internal discussions as well. But yes, I understand that very much, sir.
Any more questions for Mr. Long?
Thanks for providing that. That kind of shows some progress on the third page, I think.
And the one thing I'll say of that is for that particular version, we did sanitize it a little bit. But if you have any specific questions about some of the folks looking, I'm happy to talk with you on a one-on-one. We just did not want to share that publicly in this form since that does become an open records document.
Thank you.
All right. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion that we continue into the annual renewal of retail strategies.
I'll second.
All right. We have a motion and second. Is there any additional discussion? I would suggest that as this contract nears its end, maybe a couple of months prior, that we come back to it in plenty of time to get, to be able to make a decision with what we want to do.
Yes, sir. I think that's a great suggestion.
Yeah. I will call for the question. Those in favor, raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
All in favor?
Thank you so much, council.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So this brings us to number 10, which is new business. We have the first reading of CCMA 26-03. Mitchell J. Campbell, request tax map number 090-0000-007, 0002 plus or minus acres, located at 1143 Coleman Drive, Chester, South Carolina 29706, to be rezoned from Rural 2 District R2 to Limited Commercial District LC. Planning Commission voted 5-0 to deny. What's the pleasure of council?
Did Mr. Ward have some additional information?
Sure, we can do that. Mr. Ward, if you'll come forward. And I think last time we had this on our agenda, then it was moved to today's meeting, and you did have additional information. So thank you for.
Yes, sir. Chairman Wilson, County Council, at the last meeting, Councilman Guy asked me to go back and get some more information regarding the waste management specifically. So since that time in the intervening weeks, I've met with Mr. Campbell and also had numerous conversations with officials at the Department of Environmental Services. I'm here to give an update to you. So the proposal is to convert a former church that's been vacant for about 20 years to a funeral home. And for that to happen legally, there would need to be two systems of waste disposal. First would be a conventional septic tank to handle the hand washing and the toilets from the funeral home and the associated chapel. There's already a septic tank system on site. Mr. Campbell has actually proactively had it inspected and has identified a few minor repairs that would need to be made to handle the hand washing and the toilets. There'd obviously be a lot less traffic with that than there would be with a church. Secondly, however, would be the more robust waste system for the chemicals, the embalming chemicals such as formaldehyde and any human bodily fluids as part of the embalming process. So that could not be put into the septic tank. And there's a pretty rigorous process with the Department of Environmental Services to capture that waste. If approved by County Council, Mr. Campbell would need to apply for and receive a storage tank permit from the Department of Environmental Services. That would receive approval for either an underground storage tank or an above-ground storage tank to hold these chemicals and waste fluids. The tank and all plumbing associated with it would be approved by the Department of Environmental Services and their inspectors prior to the permit being issued by the county. Following that, he would need to receive an infectious waste generator permit that would be classified as hazardous or infectious waste. So there would be one extra permit and paperwork associated with that. If that was approved by the Department of Environmental Services, then there would be regular inspections, and the frequency of the inspections and intensity of that would vary based on how much waste is being produced. If it's over 700 gallons per week, which this likely would not be at the start, then there are looser requirements, but it would still have to be pumped and hauled off by a qualified waste disposer, and it would have to go to a approved treatment facility by the Department of Environmental Services. So all of that would be regulated pretty heavily by the state. The county would just be sure that that happens and would not issue the permits for that particular part of the construction until we got approval from the Department of Environmental Services. I will also note two new pieces of information. The applicant would, if approved, intend to rent this church. He would not purchase it, so he would still continue to rent it, at least in the short term, from the church association. And he also has provided me with his licenses from the state for a funeral director and operator and a crematory. And I'm here if you have any other questions regarding to Mr. Guy's request.
So you answered one question I was going to ask. How often would that tank be inspected? And you said it depends on how much waste it gathers.
Yes, sir, it would. And I asked that of numerous people at the Department of Environmental Services. They were pretty cagey. They said that it would depend based on how much waste is generated, and that they also didn't advertise when the inspections would take place or how often, but they could occur at any time.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
How many parking places will you allow at, or what zoning or our building department allow at this facility?
That's a great question. I know we have heard traffic mentioned a couple of times. Our traffic codes for this particular type of business requires one parking space for every 200 square feet of gross sales area. So for this particular building, there'd be about 2,000 square feet of public access area. So that would be roughly, or actually exactly 10 parking spaces. Our codes also only require paved parking lots if it's more than 10 parking spaces. So the only requirement from Chester County would be 10 gravel parking spaces. However, one of those would have to be an ADA handicap space with handicap accessibility, so that would be a concrete space. So realistically, one concrete or asphalt space, and then 9 gravel parking spaces.
Okay. Let me ask you a question. With our current zoning under R2, I'm familiar with the organization that owns this church. It's actually a church organization that owns this church. And I'm pretty sure this church organization is not going to sell this property to someone opening a nightclub. I'm very sure of that with this church organization.
So they'll be leasing it to him, so they'll still own it. So there's no, long as they're leasing it, there's no danger in this becoming something not becoming to the area, with the church organization owning it. So what I'm asking is, say for instance, we don't approve this for the funeral home. Could the church sell this property and tear it down and potentially put solar farms there?
That's a
With
good
the R2?
question. Solar farms are allowed in the R2 district, and I have not seen one that's on this small of an acreage.
But it's possible.
It's possible that solar panels could be put there.
Is it possible that this can become like a timber recycling or a timber place where they're parking skidders and tractors and cutting timber and things of that nature in this building if they rented it for that?
It would depend on the particular business, but you are allowed to have timber operations and agricultural-related businesses in R2.
So you see where I'm getting at. What I'm getting at is if this has been a church all this time and it's dilapidated, and in our comprehensive plan, we have been advocating for buildings like this to be renovated, to be used. And if you don't, you just got another dilapidated building continue to fall down in this area that was always a church. Church people were going to the church on Sunday. I don't see a bunch of traffic at a funeral home, and I understand the citizens. Trust me, I get that. That's why I asked for the DHEC information. But you're not gonna see traffic at a funeral home every day. And then if it's not a funeral home, and they sell it and make a solar farm, I ain't for that. A lot of citizens ain't for solar farms. And then I know people don't want a timber yard or someone cutting timber with loud saws and tractors and using it for a shop for timber and things of that nature there either. So I'm just making sure that, putting this out there, that this could become one of those other things if it wasn't a funeral home. It could also become something else undesirable. Am I correct?
Yes, sir. There's a lot of rural-type businesses that are allowed by right under the current zoning.
Could it also become a small inn or bed and breakfast where traffic was coming in daily for people staying there, like a small
Yes,
hotel
sir.
inn?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So all of those things it can still become all of those things under R2. I just want the citizens to understand that in its current, it would more than likely be a better option for it to stay looking like a chapel than become any of those other things. That's just something I wanted people to understand as we talk about this.
Did you talk to Mr. Campbell?
Oh, one other thing.
Go ahead.
I've been in Chester pretty much all my life. Every funeral home that I know of is in a residential area. There are houses around it. I was sitting here trying to think of one that wasn't. And I know of one street that has 2 funeral homes on it in Mobley Street, where one's closed, but at one time it had 2 operating funeral homes on the same street. It's not uncommon to have this. So that's just some other things I was wanting to point out as we discussed it. And the last thing is, why is it that the zoning board denied it? What was in reading the minutes, what were their issues?
Yes, sir. So I think similar to your original question, there were some concerns about the waste management for this, the impact on the agricultural area surrounding it. At that time, it was not completely clear that it was not intended to be sold. And so there were some concerns about what it could turn into later. And the applicant was not able to attend the meeting and present more information regarding the funeral home. So I think the lack of information there was a reason for that particular vote.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm with Mr. Guy. I like what he said, but have you talked to Mr. Campbell about the situation, about the tanks and everything that he need for that resident, for that funeral home? Have you told him?
Absolutely, Councilman Killian. We've had some great conversations.
What did he tell you? What did he, did Mr. Campbell tell you that he was gonna fix the problem?
Yes, sir, Councilman Killian. He has already been in conversation with Department of Environmental Services, and he fully intends, if approved, to comply with all the regulations.
So the current septic tank has to have work done to it.
It has some minor repairs. It's been out of use for a long time, but that would just be for the toilets and the sinks, for the public and for any employees there. But it is in good shape, usable shape, and can easily be repaired, it seems.
And all building plans and renovation plans would have to ultimately go through the county to make, in revitalizing this property and making it look better than what it looks. I got to say, I will say this, I'm very familiar with the property. My brother actually pastored at that church years ago. I've been in there, I know about the church, and I know the church organization that owns it. I can't speak for them, but I can pretty much say I don't think that they'll ever sell this church to someone trying to open up a nightclub or anything like that.
Yes, sir, and to answer your question there, the structure would need to be brought up to current code.
Yeah.
And I want to thank you for all your work helping Mr. Campbell get this stuff situated. And me personally, I think we need to let Mr. Campbell have that property and put that funeral home there, because he a young man, he doing good, and I feel like by us helping him, he'll help somebody else. And I want to approve Mr. Campbell's funeral home.
Mr. Ward, is it not true that if this property was rezoned, no matter where ownership changed hands, it would carry the same zoning we're approving tonight, potentially?
Yes,
Is
sir,
that
it
true?
would.
So anything permitted under those uses could move in there as a business, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
As long as the church sold it to them or leased it to them for that business.
Yes, sir.
The church.
Yes.
But if it ever changes hands down the road,
Yeah.
and there's no requirements to upgrade the road from a gravel road, paved parking, any of those type things, and the setbacks are pretty small on that one side, as the gentleman pointed out earlier.
So I will say on that, Councilman Raines, there are a few types of businesses where if the church, for instance, was converted into a restaurant at some point, or a bar, for example, then the parking may need to be improved just based on the parking codes. So I can't say for certain that any type of business wouldn't have to improve the parking. The road is a county-maintained road, and really whatever business or houses are there wouldn't have any impact on whether the road gets improved or not, unless the county so chooses to improve that road.
And currently, it's zoned as a rural area. It can allow commercial, but it's predominantly small farms, rural property, and people living there, no other retail in the area, correct?
It's primarily a rural area. Yes, sir.
How large is this piece of property?
How large?
Yes.
It is exactly 2.0 acres.
Okay. So I was making sure. Thank you.
And I'm with Mr. Guy. Mr. Guy, we got funeral homes all over Chester. And ain't nobody said nothing. You got Barons, Kings, you got all them in Chester. Why is it so bad?
I guess what I'm looking at is revitalizing the property in that area. Because, I mean, right now it's sitting. It's going to continue to sit. It's going to continue to dilapidate. Seeing the property revitalized into something similar to a church, to me, makes sense. Ultimately, I would hate to see it torn down, and we said we don't have any small solar farms, but I have seen small solar farms. I would hate to see it tore down and put solar panels all in the spot. I would hate to see it become some sort of sawmill or something like that, and got all kind of broke down tractors and all that stuff sitting out front when people got to drive down the driveway to see there, because it could possibly be those things. I mean, I've researched the zoning of R2. It could be those things. The funeral home makes it continue to look like a church, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. I know that the waste has been an issue, but DHEC will police that. And then, and you couldn't turn it into a bar and sell alcohol without getting a permit from the state to do that, and the citizens have input on that as well. You just can't sell alcohol at a place without getting the proper permits through the state. So that's another thing that protects it from becoming that.
Yes, sir, absolutely. I will also note in the comprehensive plan that was just approved, there were multiple things pertaining to this particular type of business. The first is that it is an absolute priority of this county and this county council to promote rural businesses and entrepreneurship and reuse of old vacant buildings. It's also a priority to preserve our rural heritage in our agricultural area, part of which can include rural businesses. It's very hard to have a rural economy if you don't have a rural business. And so this is one of those very tricky areas that the planning commission and then ultimately you as the county council have to look at really the core purposes of zoning, which is the health, the safety, the economy, the efficiency of new businesses, and the impact on the surrounding area, traffic, overcrowding, all of these considerations to make this correct zoning choice. And it is a very tricky one for this one.
Have you researched how many, and I could probably do the research because we still got two more readings on this after this. This is not set in stone after the day. We still have to visit this 2 more times. But have you researched, or could you research the average amount of services that actually take place at the funeral home in a week's time?
I can, yes, sir.
I would say that number is very low.
And Jeremy, can you make sure, if this thing be approved, can you make sure that Mr. Campbell have everything put in place? Can you assure me that you will make sure everything is put in place before the funeral home ever opens? Can you do that?
Yes, sir. Along with Mr. Levister, our building director,
Yes,
we'll be sure that all regulations are followed.
Thank you, sir.
I think the biggest issue, though, Councilman Killian, is, like Councilman Raines was speaking on, if it does change, if the church ever did sell it, it would be stuck in that zoning. And there is the potential of it becoming something unbecoming. But I can't ask people to just trust me, but I just know the AME Zion Church is not going to sell this to a person ready to open a club.
I got you.
Going back to some of the other comments earlier tonight, you know, I wish this gentleman all the success in the world, but if he is very successful, he probably won't be in this location long. And then you start down this road, and we can't speak to what the church would do from a financial standpoint or the property owners or anything else. You've opened yourself up to allowing this to happen in that area when it really doesn't fit the bill.
That's the point.
So before we have any more discussion, is there a motion on the floor?
I want to make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All right, so we have a motion to approve, and that's, the recommendation is to deny, but your motion is to approve the rezoning
Yes,
and
sir.
move forward.
Yes, Jim.
And I want to say I'm seconding that motion, not to go against the zoning board, but just like you stated, all of the information was not actually there on the table when the zoning was actually, when it was actually brought to zoning. There was a lot of things that was unclear as to the fact that the building was not being sold, it was actually being leased, there was no DHEC information, none of that stuff. I have seen us, I think, one other time go against the zoning board. I could be wrong, but this probably be our second. But like I said, this is not over with. There's 2 more readings after this where we continue to discuss this and make a decision.
All right. Is there any more discussion?
I would just like to say, I know this is just first reading. It's not, I've been thinking about this for a few days, how to go about it, because I understand the neighbors' concerns as well as want to thrive in a new business and do well. So please, just, I'm mulling this over as well. I know there's a lot of parties involved, and it's hard to kind of navigate that sometimes. So just be patient with this. Like I said, this is first reading, so we'll see. I'm going to really mull this over. It's been on my mind a lot lately.
Is there anything else? Yeah, my comment would be that, we had a lot of really good citizen comments tonight on both sides. That makes their job difficult because I think both sides have some really good points. I am not familiar with the property. I know where it is, but that's all I know about it. I'd like to see it. I'm going to go see it. So I'm going to be voting with the Planning Commission tonight, so I'll be opposing this motion. But before the second reading, I'm going to make sure I pay a visit to it. Is there any more comments?
Yeah, I am going to put myself out there, and I want to speak with the residents in those areas, have a conversation with them as well about this matter. This is one of those, I think this is probably the second toughest one we've had to vote on. So I will be speaking to each one of you. I actually know one of the residents really well that I want to speak with as well. So again, this is just the first reading.
All right, is there any more discussion? So before I call for the vote, just as Mr. Guy just said, this is a first reading. We'll have a second reading. It's the third reading that matters. So first and second reading just kind of give you an indication of what council's thinking, but it's the third reading that matters. So please keep that in mind. With that, I'll call for the question. Those in favor, raise your right hand to say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Aye. All right, so that motion fails 4-2. So are we good to move forward, Ms. Workman, as far as procedurally? Okay. All right, so next up is 10B, which is the Gateway Conference Center update. We have our Gateway Conference Center Director, Ms. Henderson, with us.
Good evening. Thank you so much for this opportunity to not only give you a few updates on the momentum at Gateway, but also the opportunity just to lead this wonderful team. Everyone that has their hands on Gateway has embraced the mission of that we're not just a building. We are a hub for tourism. We are a hub for connecting our local businesses to all of the things that are happening within the walls of Gateway. As you can see, we are rebranding ourselves as the Carolinas Hub for Meetings and Milestones. And in doing so, we're really telling the story within the 50-mile radius that Gateway is the place to be for your meetings, your milestones between Columbia and Charlotte, really selling that I-77 aspect. I'm going to take you to Sunday school for a little bit. It's called, this is the mentality that I'm teaching my team, and we're building the ark. You know, when God prepared Noah for the flood, he had to build that ark first, and that's what we're doing now. We're preparing for all the future growth that we know is coming to Chester County. We see the comprehensive plan, we see all the neighborhoods, we see York County and Lancaster creeping in and wanting to use Gateway. We see people coming from as far as Gastonia, Indian Trail, wanting to have their events here. So that's what we're doing. We're building the ark. Within this last year, we've been focused on expanding our in-house capabilities, creating and making our venue very turnkey. We don't want to make people think that you're just coming, you're paying the rent, and now you're getting some tables and chairs. We're becoming more turnkey and presenting ourselves as a regional destination. We're preparing as our demand escalates. That's what we're doing in this phase. We know that our event planners, they want convenience. They don't want to have to call around and book their lunch, book their linen, and book all those different things. So that's why we're becoming more turnkey. In last year, we hosted 217 events. As of today, we have already hosted 238 events, and we are still booking late, but we're still booking June events, and even into July, people are still calling. So I'm interested to see how those numbers are going to continue to grow before the fiscal year ends. Last year, we generated over $458,000, and we are on task to surpass that. Again, we are still booking. I'm noticing that we're expanding more of our regional bookings. We're becoming more of, again, that hub. Operations that have businesses in Columbia, operations that have businesses in Charlotte, they're choosing to come to Gateway as that central location. And in doing so, when I was saying we're becoming more turnkey, this last year we launched what we are calling Gateway Plus. And that's, again, letting renters know that, yeah, you can come, you can bring your planner, you can bring your decorator, but also, we also have those things already built in here. These are elevated services that we are now creating additional streams of revenue with. In this last year, we started linen rentals. We have in-house linen. You're welcome to bring your own, but again, to have that service is a game changer for so many people that just really don't have those connections. We're also providing in-house staging. We have a selfie booth. We have just launched coffee and tea service. And next year, we're going to get more into snacks, all-day snacks. That's been a game changer for a lot of our conferences where they need to feed people all day. The ability for us to be able to do that in-house has really given that extra level of hospitality. We're also doing butler and porter services. That's for a lot of those conferences that come and they don't want to just be at Gateway all day by themselves. They want someone on site, making sure the bathrooms are maintained, making sure, a lot of times with our multi-service events, they want people to basically pass their appetizers, pass water, pass those tanks, those extra levels of hospitality. We also launched a room flip service that is also for those companies that maybe during the day they're doing more conferences and retreats, and then they take a break, and then they want basically the rooms reset, broken down, and basically come back in the evenings for a whole different event. We've been able to do that as part of Gateway Plus. A big game changer for Gateway Plus is that it's also given us the ability to do gateway deals. And this is where I've been able to form partnerships with a lot of our local small businesses. And it's basically, you've got donuts, okay, well, can you give me a discount? If I can send Gateway attendees to you, can they get a special promotional rate because they have attended an event at Gateway? That's how that started. Basically, we started a database on our website and on our social media, and businesses have begun to register to provide a Gateway deal. But in doing so, we've been able to also add other services, add other menus and things that our attendees have been able to order from. In that bottom picture, that's Thomas Jordan, where we've done this maybe 3 times with Nova in the last 2 months, where we basically, one day we ordered like 100 dozen donuts because we had this big conference that needed donuts. So we created the coffee in-house, and then we outsourced those donut orders to Nova. So we're doing that more and more with our local small businesses. So that's something you can take back to your communities, that reach out, get registered, let us know what services, what goods you provide, because the Gateway deals, again, we feel as we win, our local community should also win. In the last year, well, I would say last week, we were just rewarded the South Carolina PRT advertisement grant. That's also going to allow us to continue to tell that story within that 50-mile radius. A big part of this application was also to tell the story of the new Veterans History Center that's going to open. And the goal with some of that advertisement is to be able to package the Gateway story with the Visitors History Center to basically create a whole destination for people when you come and you have your conference and retreats. Go over there and check out all of the great history that is within Chester County. We've also been named Best in South Carolina by Business Rate, and that's also due to Google reviews. And a lot of that is coming from those guests that have come in and they're taking advantage of the Gateway deals and those extended services that we're now offering. We're also expanding and doing our own signature events. That's another way for us to tell the Gateway story. Again, we are becoming basically an advertisement branch for Chester County and for tourism. So with our signature events, we launched this year Gateway to I Do, which is our bridal showcase, and we did Holiday Magic at Gateway. Both events averaged about 500 attendees, and more than half were from outside of Chester County within a 50-mile radius. Again, we hit a lot of North Carolina with that. And these two signature events allowed us to form more community partnerships and then leverage more vendor opportunities. That's just a couple pictures. There's our Cowboy Santa from that. And as we said, as I'm trying to create more services and again, create more of a turnkey experience, we're looking ahead to our outdoor venue expansion. This is a big part of our next fiscal year. We're getting a lot of demand for outdoor venue space that primarily for weddings, but also for folks that just need another place. And I think I've gotten out of the slide. Another place to congregate outside of the four walls of the building. So in that picture, if I can get back to it, I basically snagged this at a venue in Mount Holly. So their trees look more like Christmas trees, and not necessarily the look I'm going for, but outside of the ballroom C, the big major ballroom on that green space, we're proposing planting large trees, full-grown trees. They'll go in at least 9 feet tall to basically enclose that area to create a garden space so that we can accommodate at least 200 people for a ceremony if we were to do a ceremony. It's also another place where we could have cocktail tables if people needed like a more outside space to mix and mingle. So it's a pretty simple way for us to basically make better use of what we already have to, again, give us another revenue stream and more marketability as we continue to brand ourselves as a regional hub. So again, Gateway, we want to be more than just a rental venue. We want to be completely turnkey, completely able to compete with Charlotte and Columbia. Again, as we're pulling so many people from 77, we don't want to just be, you're here and that's it. We want to be able to add that extra level of hospitality, and that's with the services that we are providing as a team and our ability to basically team up with our Chester County businesses. So any businesses that you have that you would like to recommend for our Gateway deals or our Gateway services, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
All right, so any comments?
I just want to thank Amelia for all the hard work she's doing. It's been great what she has done for our Gateway and where she's gotten it to at this point. And just hats off to you for doing an outstanding job.
Yeah. I'll say this too, I've been at the Gateway with Amelia doing some things before, and she doesn't just stand up and, orchestrate things. I've seen her, all of us steam cleaning, hands and knees in the floor, making things happen. So she's a worker too, as well as taking care of everything else that the Gateway has.
That's right. Another thing that stood out to me too, I've been to a few events at the Gateway, and to see her actually being present at those events means a lot. Her presence when someone rents the venue and she's actually there on site working, being able to answer questions and assist the people who rent the venue. I don't know, I'm not saying she has to do it every time, but I know I've seen her there a couple times during events, and that went a long way for me.
There's a lot of logistics that goes into a big event, especially like the Chamber of Commerce and like the Mayor's Ball recently. But it's always a breeze to attend events down there. Everything seems to always be well planned. And Amelia, I'd like to thank you for all your hard work down there.
Anything else?
So I'd just like to say, you all see why I'm so proud of this team. And Amelia came in a couple years back, and Mr. Darby and I are even more happy. Those of you that may not know the Gateway Center, county general fund supplemented the operation of the Gateway Center, and for the last 2 years, going on 3 years, since Amelia's been here, she's turned that around, and it is self-supporting. And she's finding new ways to add revenue. And then when she adds revenue, what do? She makes it better. She adds more to the venue. She adds more services, more staff. She wants more. I'd love to give her more. But she's done a fantastic job. I couldn't be more proud and happy to where the Gateway has come and what she's made of it. And people love her. She does such a good job with all the things you talked about how she handles people, and she's fair, she's consistent. But thank you, Amelia. Great presentation.
Yeah, that would be my comment as well. I really like the Gateway Plus. I think that's a great concept. You sold it well. And the vision for the outdoor area, that makes a lot of sense. Look forward to seeing that. Hope that comes about. And then, Brian, Mr. Hester sort of stole my thunder, but, you know, we made a big deal about our balanced budgets where we don't have to increase taxes, and this is one of those reasons. This thing has turned around from some years back. We were losing money, and now then it kind of broke even for a while, and now it's actually turned the corner and making money. So that helps keep those taxes down for our citizens, and so we all appreciate that. Anything else? All right, next up is 11A, which is the Gateway Steering Committee applicant. If I could, I'd call for Ms. Workman to give an explanation on that.
Thank you, Chairman. We received a late application on Friday and another recommendation for this committee. I would ask, and due to Mr. or Councilman Agee not being present today, his recommendation was the applicant that's actually was going to be presented tonight. So I ask that we table this until June 1st meeting to allow the opportunity for us to distribute the new application and consider both applications.
All right. So I'll put that in the form of a motion that we postpone this committee appointment until the next meeting.
Question. This kind of goes into my boards and commission soapbox I've been on here since I've been on this council. So, you said Mr. Agee submitted this applicant, right?
So for this particular committee, there are recommendations that are made either by a council member, a current board member, I believe there's one other.
Or myself.
Or by the administrator, thank you. And once those recommendations are made, the application is also made, and then that's presented to council for the applicant.
All right, so I might have missed something, and I ain't perfect, but how is it that, and help me understand it, I'm not coming at anybody, or any one council person, but how do we decide which council member was able to actually make the recommendation?
I think they made that independently for this particular committee. That is made independently.
Yeah, I understand that. So I'm entitled to recommend someone too.
So let me help clear something up. So the committee was actually, per the Enabling Act, looking at open positions, finding out who's going to continue to serve. This recommendation from Mr. Agee came in prior to the committee finalizing their audit of their current membership to determine how many open positions they had. So the Enabling Act, the way it reads, which may, again, I think you're right, once we go through boards and commissions and all this is reevaluated, there'll be some wording change. But right now, the way it reads is if there is a current opening, people can be recommended one of three ways, and then Ms. Workman just covered those. And so there was a recommendation initially from a former board member which did not meet the Enabling Act. So then there was a recommendation from Mr. Agee for that person. At the same time, the steering committee itself voted and recommended another person. And so those all kind of came in sequential, but with each other. And so our request is just table this until you can review both of those.
I get that, but what I'm getting at is how did we or the wording or whatever, what made it possible that Mr. Agee was able to
recommend and no other council member was. That's what I can't understand.
That was done before council was presented with an open position. So realistically, or really what we should do
So-
at this
so let-
point
yeah, go ahead, Mr. Esther.
is to post it to council to, if there is one opening that the committee has presented us with, then council should have the authority as well for other council members to make a nomination for a member as well.
Is there another applicant at this time, or?
There's right now 2 applicants.
And this is not council-specific. These positions are not council-specific at this time. So there aren't 7 seats. Does that
I just
help?
want to be clear in what I'm saying. I think I'm being clear, but I want to be even clearer. It's nothing against the applicant. What I'm trying to do is be fair to all council members and all citizens in Chester County, in all districts that we represent. Mr. Agee represents a district. He recommends someone. I recommend a district. I represent a district. I feel like I should be able to recommend someone as well. I should have a voice, just like any other council member should have a voice when we're speaking on boards and commissions. It's been a thing since I've been on council. I've been talking about this, about trying to revamp this and get some clarity on
So
it.
let me speak to something. So just recently, we had an opening on the airport commission. So what we did is we found out we had an opening. We talked about it during the council meeting. 2 weeks later, we had an applicant. We had 2 applicants, and then we took a vote. So that's the format I would like to use. This one, I guess, we attended the agenda meeting. It kind of, the process was a little different because, like Mr. Hester explained, it came from the committee initially, but it was a former committee member, so that didn't qualify. And I'm guessing that was found out, that's why it wasn't put on there. So then a council member, which I didn't realize that council members could do, I really thought it came from the committee. So that's how this name appeared. I think going forward, the best process would be we have an opening. We talk about it in council meeting. A lot of times we have to accept a resignation. So that's when it happens. Sometimes we don't. This time we had an opening, but we didn't accept the resignation, did we?
You're talking about with Mr. Oliphant?
Yes.
That, I don't think it has, because this is an advisory committee, so it's a little, the enabling act is a little different.
And that's why we're cleaning it up.
That's
So
right.
Normally, we would accept a resignation. This one's a little different. But when we accept the resignation, that gives us all notice that we have 2 weeks to get our names in for consideration for the next meeting. So that's the process I intend to follow going forward. So didn't exactly happen this time, but we're going to table it. So this will give us all 2 weeks to see if we have anybody else we recommend.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. So I put that in a form of a motion that we table this nomination until 2 weeks to the next meeting.
Second.
All right. Is there any discussion? None, I'll call for the question. Those in favor, raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
All right. So we will move this to the next meeting. That brings us to number 12, which is executive session. 12A is a discussion of a proposed sale or purchase of property, Doctors Court. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion, we go into executive session.
Second.